G'day there guys, it's your Aussie Hubby Markee, back at it again with another r/legal advice video. Now with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and get ready for some bloody good legal advice. Now our first post is by user Chiropractor92, titled, Utah. A went to a chiropractor for a free consultation, and he just billed my insurance $850. How can I take this fricker and the person shilling for him down? I made an account to ask this because I couldn't find much on my own. Sorry if I messed something up. So about a year ago, I was in a car accident that screwed my back up pretty bad. I got a pretty huge payout because of it, and my insurance has been covering a lot of the treatments for me. Recently I had to change physical therapists temporarily because of an unrelated matter, but my temp recommended I go to see this guy, Dr. Dave. She claimed up and down on how good he was the best, and I got into contact with him. When I got into contact with his office, I was told that my first consultation and adjustment would be free. I have this in writing via emails. So I went and saw him last week, and let me tell you, he is as creepy as they come. Despite him having a wife and family, he seemed to be hitting on me and telling me how good my body was. I'm a guy. Ha! Thanks, man. Along with this, right out of the gate he began to diagnose me with everything from arthritis, slipped discs, and words that I swear he just made up. In the end, he said he wanted me to get onto a $9,000 3-week plan where I came in every day, and after that moved to twice a week. This would not include my adjustment that day, which would only be $140. Suffice to say, I screwed off as quick as I could. Everything he said I had was wrong. Along with this, despite the fact I never said I was in an accident to him or his workers, they had very specific details about it. Turns out that my new physical therapist is his niece. So after a week of getting a new temp physical therapist and giving my doctor a good laugh at the diagnosis he gave me, my insurance gave me a call. This guy just billed them $850 for a chiropractic consultation. When I went, I gave them my insurance info because they claimed it was policy, and I thought nothing of it. I was wrong. My insurance is now investigating and said that their lawyers will contact me and that if I get a bill, to send it to them. And that sounds good, but honestly, I'm ticked at him and his niece. From a friend that I know who has been going to his niece temporarily, also said she's been recommending him to her too, even though her injury is not back related. So my question is simple. How do I get this man put out of business? Who do I report him to and his niece to? Some may say this is petty, but that's my middle name. Edit. Felt like I should do this. Sorry if this breaks some rules. I kinda got carried away when I made this post. Since my accident, hearing from miracle pushes is kinda normal. I've heard this gambit from special supplements to oils. doTERRA has ruined multiple friendships. So when I went to this guy and he pushed his cure-all and told me what was really wrong and that he could cure it, I got a little ticked off. If that was it, then whatever. The fact that he had the nerve to then charge my insurance for this just boiled my blood, and so I may have been a little too warpathy in my post. I will report him and the PT to the medical boards and pretty much let my insurance handle it from there. I am a PT. Report the woman to your state's board of physical therapy. She violated HIPAA because you were most likely not a patient of his before she shared all of your information. You might want to investigate if your state's kickback laws apply to the either/both the PT and chiro. Stark laws come to mind. Yeah, I'll be reporting her and the chiro. Even if she was, there are pretty strict guidelines for what can be shared between different offices without patient consent. If the OP didn't authorize the snake oil chiropractor to obtain her medical records, there's a good chance they violated HIPAA. You've got good advice on how to report the uncle. Please make sure to also report the niece. From what I can tell, she did two things wrong. 1. There's no way a PT should be referring you to a chiropractor. The fact they are related makes it look worse. Someone sent you to her. I would report her to that person's organization, especially if that's who she works for. 2. She likely shared your information with her uncle. That is very likely a HIPAA violation, there should be plenty of information in this sub for reporting that. You should be able to trust medical professionals and their referrals. I applaud you for turning them in and helping to limit the damage they will cause in the future. I sent an email to the organization that she works for, telling them the story and how she shared my info. The friend is planning on writing to them as well. I might report her to the licensing board too. Please report the HIPAA violation. What happened sounds very unethical. If it turns out everything was ethical, then the HIPAA investigation will likely find no fault and nothing bad will happen. If it's as bad as I think it is, it needs to be marked on her record in case it ever comes up again. I doubt you were the first or last person that they try to con. Yeah, I'm gonna fill out a complaint with the licensing board and include this. The chiropractor knew things about the accident that were impossible even if he had read the news reports about my accident, so she definitely told him. And now, update. Chiropractor tried to charge my insurance for a free visit. So, after that post, things got interesting to say the least. A lawyer from my insurance company got into contact with me and asked me a bunch of questions and told me a little of what was going on. Turns out that Dr. Dave was already being investigated by my insurance company for fraudulent charges, and that I wasn't the only one who went in for a free consultation and adjustment and been charged. The lawyer told me that I probably won't need to do anything else as they were handling it, and to stay as far away from the doctor as possible. If this was the end of it, I wouldn't have even come back. Here I am, so something happened, and boy was it satisfying. I submitted complaints to the board that licenses chiropractors and physical therapists after my last post, along with a harsh email to the company the PT was working for. Well, this last Friday I got an email from said company apologizing. They said that the PT who referred me to him is no longer with us and will not be practicing in the near future. Along with this, on Dr. Dave's Facebook page, they released a statement saying that they will not be taking new patients for the foreseeable future. So, it seems that for the time being, these two won't be pulled the crap they had with me, a win-win. Thanks for the advice on the original post and calming me down from my salt the earth mentality. I really needed it. Our next post is by user Aquatic Quiet, titled, "My neighbor is literally starving his ducks/chickens to death. I don't know what else to do. I live in Pennsylvania. My neighbor hasn't been feeding his chickens and ducks. He keeps them locked up in 4x5 wire cage. Their only shelter is literally a bucket turned sideways full of mud and feces. We've been sneaking food over and have talked to the neighbor about animal food banks and everything. I contacted the local SPCA and another rescue. SPCA said they would come out 3 days ago and never did. And yesterday, one of the chickens was dead. We didn't realize he just never fed them at all. The other chickens were just laying next to the dead one, crying. We called the local cops and they never called back. I called the state police and they sent a dude out yesterday. We didn't call the neighbors at all because we didn't want them to have time to remove the dead chicken. We have pictures. I contacted another rescue who were willing to take the ducks and chickens. There are only 2 ducks and I think 2 chickens left now, but they don't have an officer to deal with animals, they just take in rescues. I don't know what else to do. I'm waiting for the neighbor to get home and just outright ask them to buy them and then take them to the rescue, but if they don't sell, what can I do? Can I keep calling the cops until they get sick of coming out here and do something? And why didn't the cop do anything when there is clear animal abuse/neglect happening? Edit. The 2 little chickens are gone and the dead one. Also, one of the ducks is missing. They haven't been turning on the heat lamp. We're assuming the rest of the chickens and one of the ducks has died. We put out 3 cut up apples, green beans, and a whole pack of strawberries for them yesterday, and it's all gone. Don't know if they ate it or the neighbor removed it. Old mate Auntie Fascist says, call animal control. They are who handles animal abuse complaints. So I googled this for my county, and literally just got pest controls and rescue orgs that I already contacted, including the SPCA. I'm up to 5 rescue orgs that won't respond to me at all. I did some Googling, and it seems like you need to contact your local Humane Society police officer. There's a police officer specifically trained/tasked with dealing with animal cruelty. You can search here to find yours on pda.state.pa.us. I don't know how likely it is that any action will be taken given that we're talking about chickens and ducks, which are food animals, but you can try. You can also research whether your municipality has laws about the number of ducks or chickens people can have, size and location of enclosures, etc. If they're keeping more animals than allowed, or the enclosure is too close to the property line, or something like that, you could involve code enforcement and they might fine the person. If he gets fined, he might decide it's better to get rid of the animals than do whatever he needs to get compliant. There are only 2 ducks left since yesterday. There were 3 ducks and 3 chickens. I'm going to ask to buy the last 2 at this point. Thank you though. I have a rescue willing to take them if he sells them to me. How do you know for sure that he isn't feeding them? And what do you mean by the other chickens were just laying there next to the dead one crying? By neighbor, I mean we share a walkway type thing, have the same landlord. I can hear when they fight, we're that close. The enclosure is right behind both of our houses. Anytime we go back there, there is no food. They went away for 3 days and had no one to come feed them. They told us where the food was one time, and when we talked to him about it, there not being any food, and when we checked for food to feed them, the bag was empty. The last time we saw them have food was when we were away for 3 days, but the food is not covered and it rained and the food got washed out. The only water they get is when it rains, and their only water bowl is the size of a dog dish, which is usually half mud/water. The dead chicken was in the bucket that they have for shelter, and the 2 younger chickens were inside next to the dead one, just peeping and whatever noises chickens make. I raise chickens. When I feed my chickens, every bit of food I throw out to them is gone within minutes. They eat it immediately. There is never any food just sitting out. I thought that too, but with the fact that there is literally no feed in the shed and that they went away for 3 days, not worried about if they were fed or not, and now 1 chicken is dead, I'm pretty confident that they don't feed them. Edit. Also, whenever we talked about him, if he feeds them, he would say they're going through a hard time and it's difficult. They are somewhat animal hoarders. They have a rabbit and a snake and 8 cats inside. The husband told us since they can't afford to get the cats fixed, they keep 6 of them locked in one room. What the fuck? Did you report the cats to the Humane Society or the other animal welfare groups as well? Sad to say, they might not know what to do about the ducks and chickens or aren't equipped to handle those. If that's the case, that's likely why you're not getting that much traction there. But they usually do know what to do with the cats that are being neglected. If they can't afford to get the cats fixed, chances are there's far more than 8 cats in the house. We did when we reported the ducks and chickens. They said there is nothing they can do since the cats are inside. I don't know why, and that was from the SPCA when they said they would come out. I think at this point, I've reported it to 2 different police stations and 5 or 6 rescue orgs, and got nothing. I'm just sad and angry about the whole thing, and I'm going to try and buy the last 2 ducks at this point. Oh dang, I was hoping you could use the angle of the cats to get them to take action, since any sign of neglect with animals usually means all the animals are being neglected. I wonder if Adult Protective Services might be able to help. Hoarding animals is a psychological issue, and having that many cats could be a health problem because of the fecal matter. Especially in the one room. I can't even imagine. I have a friend with 8 cats and 2 dogs, but you can't even tell. She keeps up on the litter boxes every day and is not a crappy person, haha, and works with the rescue for cats. But I highly doubt our neighbors take care of them. The wife literally does nothing. So the husband says. She wants the animals and he takes care of them. She also works with children, so what the hell? That's just, I don't know. Sounds like a great lady. And now, update. My neighbors were starving their chickens and ducks to death. This didn't get a lot of traction at all, but for the 2 or 3 people who responded, the neighbor apparently told the cop that the chickens died from sharing a space with the ducks. Nothing will be done on that end. There were originally 4 chickens altogether, and all 4 died within 3 days. There are 3 ducks left. I went out today to offer to purchase the ducks from him to take them to a sanctuary that I found who would have taken them, but they apparently already found a new home for them, and the new owners will be coming to pick them up on Wednesday. So hopefully they have a better life after this. The only orgs that have contacted me back were the ones that didn't deal with animal abuse/neglect to let me know they can't help, which I appreciated. I'm pretty upset about the lack of response from the SPCA. They haven't contacted us at all since the day before they said they would come out to investigate. I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 of the chickens could still be alive if they did. Apparently the wife is upset and going crazy about getting rid of the remaining ducks, but she's literally not once has left her house outside of going to work. She has never ever gone back there with the ducks and chickens. I'm pretty sure she has hoarding tendencies at this point, and her husband enables her. The husband didn't seem at all fazed that we called the cops on him. I think he's just done with the whole situation, to be honest. So I failed at saving those poor chickens, but I like to think that since the cop came out, they decided to get rid of the ducks. So while the cop didn't seem to care at all about this situation, and he just had to be there because it's his job, I'm still thankful he showed up, because I think it helped scare the neighbor. That's a terrible resolution to this story. Nothing was good about these posts. Probably one of the worst I've heard. I'm upset. But anyway, let's go to the next story. Our next post is by user Grubby Butthole. You just love to hear it, don't you? Oregon. My town is refusing to enforce the law on people who are poor. I posted here a while ago about my millennial hating neighbor, and I back with a new issue from this guy, and that also involves my town council as well. At the beginning of my year, my neighbor decided to rent his detached garage to a woman and her boyfriend. A few weeks after they moved in, there started to be problems. The renters started screaming and fighting, collecting junk outside their dwelling, including lots of trash, letting their dog dig into my yard, and trespassing on my property, just to name a few things. Wow. I called my county's animal control every time I had an issue with their dog, and called the police every time I had an issue with my neighbor. I have cameras up and have footage of all the crap they have pulled. I have asked the renters to stop. I have attempted to talk to my neighbor to no avail. Not with no avail? Come on, man. In an attempt to get these jerks gone, I spoke to my county's code enforcement, because garages are not allowed to be dwellings in my county. Unfortunately, I live in the city limits, and so it falls to my city for jurisdiction. They also have the same law, but they have decided to not enforce this law because the renters are poor and are on disability and could sue the city for kicking them out. Actual words from a person I spoke to in my town hall. I have spoken with another person who works in my town, as a cop, and not enforcing the law on poor people is becoming the norm in my town. Anything from speeding to theft is not enforced if you claim that it was done because you're poor. Unfortunately, the crime rate in my town has skyrocketed in the last year, while the town resident number hasn't increased. But more and more poor people seem to be committing crimes. I get that the city has some ability to use discretion in matters like this, but can they just decide to not enforce the law on a certain group of people? Maybe try the fire department? Does the garage have 2 means of egress, front and back, or a large enough window that someone could exit through the window? Does it have a kitchen and electricity? If no kitchen, are they using space heaters and hot plates? If there is a kitchen, is that all up to code? This could be a fire hazard, and generally fire marshals do not screw around when people are blatantly creating a fire hazard. I've spoken to the fire marshal, and he is also a city employee. He told me that there are 6 other dwellings that he knows of in our town. He is trying to get the city to either make them legal dwellings and bring them up to code and tax the landlords, or enforce the law on the books and not allow people to live in them. I guess the one behind us is better because the landlord lives on site. The others have landlords who live out of town/state and don't maintain them. And someone else says, yes, they can largely choose their own law enforcement priorities and manage their risk of lawsuits. You can sue the renters for any damage they cause to your property. And someone else says, having or not having money is not a protected class. The city can absolutely decide to be compassionate to people who cannot afford fines, / would otherwise be homeless. If you're not a fan of this practice, get active in your city's government. That's the thing, they wouldn't be homeless. They qualify for Section 8 housing. The social worker who came out and talked to them and I informed me of that. The problem is the woman won't give up her dog, and the apartment complex in my town doesn't allow pit bulls. But the apartment complex on the town over do. But she doesn't want to live 20 minutes from our town. Qualifying for Section 8 doesn't mean much when the waiting list is years and years long. She probably doesn't want to live 20 minutes away because she doesn't have reliable transportation, and if your town only has one apartment complex, I'd bet Section 8 housing is nearly impossible to get. As others have said, doesn't matter if you qualify for Section 8 because it can literally take more than a decade to get access to it. The resources are stretched far too thin, so a lot of people are living on the verge of homelessness, even people who are disabled and literally unable to support themselves. By not enforcing fines, the city is actually trying to help vulnerable people avoid losing what little they have. Perhaps perspective can help you see the good in what they are doing, even if the outcome isn't always favorable or fair. More resources are needed for better outcomes. That said, you also have rights. Being poor doesn't entitle a person to doing as they please, with no regard for the others or the law. The city must maintain a delicate balance. You can impact the situation by reporting crimes, becoming active in local government, getting to know your neighbors and establishing rapport, and/or moving. I am not a lawyer. First of all, the police don't have to make arrests and the city doesn't have to charge or prosecute them, but they will take a report. So make sure you're filing reports and keeping any documentation you have. Second, and this is as much a question for you as it is for the sub, since the property owner lives on site, could you sue the tenants for the property damage to your fence and any other real monetary damages they've caused you, and then attach the landlord/property owner to it, and potentially his homeowner's insurance? If so, I would suspect that you could come to some settlement that would favor him getting rid of the tenants in a hurry rather than face continued liability from them. If this is the apple tree neighbor, he could be doing it to spite you. Since his concerns seem to be his property value, threatening his homeowner's insurance might get some movement. If this is another neighbor, he may just need the money and a threat to his income stream might be enough to fix things civilly. Either way. And now, update. Oregon, my town is refusing to enforce the law on people who are poor. I thought I would update you guys on what has happened since the original post. But first, I will clarify some things. 1. This isn't a race issue. My town is over 95% white. I am actually a minority. This issue is about my police force/town not wanting to be mean on people who are poor and breaking the law. 2. I have no idea why my neighbors liked to be in my yard. I have nothing in my yard and haven't since November other than a doghouse, rocks and wood rounds. No fruit trees, pools, playgrounds or toys. My guess is that they, especially the women, lack boundaries. 3. The pattern that I see is that people who live in a legitimate house, regardless of if they own or rent, are ignored when someone damages their property. My neighbor had her car windows smashed. Even with security footage and the kid bragging about what he did, the police refused to do anything because his parents are poor. They live in a trailer park. Now for the update. I went and spoke with my town's mayor. He understood where I was coming from, and I have a date to address my city council with the issue that I'm currently having with the police department and the city's current stance on enforcing laws. I was also informed that the state of Oregon passed a law requiring almost all towns and counties to allow additional dwelling units, ADUs. My mayor has asked me to help lead a committee to make my town laws favorable to all parties as they try to come into compliance. As for my neighbors, the renters, well, they are in some hot water. A few days after I made my post, my friend, who is a mandatory reporter, was house-sitting for me. She witnessed the renter's boyfriend beat one of the grandkids with a belt. She called DHS and the police. The police did nothing, and DHS took the report. The police not doing anything, they didn't even show up, ticked my friend off. My friend talked with an individual from the state's police who they know from work. They let them know something is seriously off about the renters and that the local PD doesn't want to deal with it. Well, Over a week ago, I witnessed a guy shooting up while the crazy neighbor lady talked to him. I called my county's drug task force and reported it. 2 days later, the county raided the dwelling and arrested the neighbors, the renters, the daughter and another person, all for dealing heroin. The kids were taken into protective custody, and me and a few other people were questioned about everything. My county and state police are now in the process of reviewing my town's police force for corruption. Apparently, they have had corruption issues several times in the past. God, so it's not the first time, that's lovely. New neighbors moved into Habitat for Humanity house next door yesterday. Today they came over to request our permission to start building a fence. Today. The family literally just signed papers for the house yesterday, and they came over just a few minutes ago to ask if it's okay for them to put up a fence between our houses, starting today. We said we don't know where exactly the property line is, but we've been planning to get estimates for a fence soon ourselves. The woman said it's her father who wants to start it right now, and suggested that they just build exactly between our houses. We're in an urban area with narrow lots, so there's not a lot of room to spare. Another wrinkle is that they have immigrated from another country and English is not their first language, and maybe there are some cultural differences, personal property. We want to be on good terms and welcoming towards our new neighbors, but we're at a loss for how to respond to this sudden, kinda huge request. And Carthago Deladenta Est says, sounds like you were worried telling them to wait for a survey will make them mad. You could try explaining to them that if they put up with it without going through the village / whatever and following the process, and it doesn't meet code, they'll have to take it down. If you can say it so it sounds like you're on their side, but that it'll be a huge expense to them, it might help. And it has the added benefit of probably being true. Fences are visible from the exterior, so it doesn't have to be an official complaint from you, just the expectors noticing the work having been done. My parents have a fence in their backyard, and left a foot of space between the edge of their fence and their property line for drainage, which the city told them they had to do. Neighbors start to build a fence by nailing their fence to my dad's fence, so my dad told them about the property line, and they just sort of shrugged it off and kept going. My dad started taking their fence down as they were putting it up, and the cops got involved. Cops can't do anything because it's a code enforcement. My parents ended up having to pay for a survey to prove the property line, and then if the neighbors had persisted, then they would have to go to court over the issue. I guess what I'm getting at is I'd try to keep it civil, but you may have to do some footwork. I want to say when a house is bought, they have to do a survey, but that could change from place to place. If you let them build and do nothing, you are surrendering that land to them, and if they have a survey done years down the road, the city may change the plot coordinates to reflect it. And Ork says, don't forget to have utilities marked. They could cut a gas, water, or electric line if they don't have them marked. +1 for this. They need to contact one call to have utilities marked and get a permit from your county for the fence. Every county has different laws regarding fence placement. Not a lawyer, but I'm unsure if Habitat for Humanity will allow them to do this. At least in my area, they own the homes until the family meets certain criteria. Financial counseling, proof of income, a certain number of payments. They may not be allowed to make changes to the property until they fully own it. That's how our local H4H works. Maybe talk to them about it. They may also have a survey from when they built the home. Not a lawyer. Be firm on your request to get a survey before anything goes in the ground. Even better if you can get it in writing. Text, email, or something. I know you don't want to spoil a new neighbor relationship, but the headaches and cost later down the road are not worth being polite about something like this. We had a new neighbor build a fence 2 feet on our property. They didn't even ask us where the line was, or try to find out. They just guessed and went for it. And then they refused to move it when we showed them the original iron boundary pins. We've spent several years and about $5,000 so far litigating for this stupid fence removal so we can sell our houses without issues. That's fairly cheap compared to others with similar property boundary issues from what I gather. I wouldn't mess around with what is normally your largest asset, your home. So I'm a real estate attorney, but not your attorney. In these types of situations, I advise people to check public survey records for general lot line locations and corner markers. This should give you a rough idea about boundaries. Then you check your local building and zoning code for fence permit process and regulations. You're absolutely right, the fence could be forcibly removed, although hopefully the city could just let it be fixed, if non-permitted but up to code. I would definitely relay this to your neighbour, at least verbally, but also possibly in writing. I also happen to be part of the leadership of a Habitat for Humanity affiliate. Habitat typically deeds the property to the owners, but holds a first and second mortgage. First mortgage gets paid by homeowner, yes they actually pay, and second is forgiven over time. I know most people would assume a mortgage holder wouldn't want to get involved, but a lot of Habitat affiliates are self-conscious about their builds. They want their houses and the partner families to get along with the neighbourhood. If there is a language barrier issue after you've explained your concern, then maybe it's someone at Habitat could be a bridge. There should be someone at the local affiliate who works with the partner families, who I'm positive knows your neighbours very well. Update. New neighbours moved into Habitat for Humanity house next door yesterday. Today they came over to request our permission to start building the fence today. I posted a month ago about our brand new neighbours wanting our permission to put a fence exactly between our houses. We ended up telling them that they really need to get a property survey done first, since they don't know where exactly the property lines are. It was a little difficult to communicate this well, since there's a language barrier, but eventually they understood and agreed to wait. Since they didn't know how to proceed, and were planning to do a property survey ourselves soon, we offered to research and get quotes and schedule surveys for both our properties to be done at the same time. Well, it's a good thing we did push for the property survey, because we discovered, after living here for almost 13 years, that there's actually a separate 10-foot wide lot between our houses that's owned by someone else entirely. The survey said, as far as he can tell, when Habitat bought the then abandoned house next to us, they either declined to buy the adjacent 10-foot lot that was tied to it, or somehow they weren't aware of it. In any case, that 10-foot lot then went up in a tax sale that they were never notified of, and it was bought by some guy for about $500. So now we have to go through the process of contacting this guy and seeing what he's going to ask for this inconvenient gap between our houses. Our next post is by user Bike and the Mechanics, titled, "Was injured in a motorbike accident, driver cut me off. She's considered at fault. However, I don't think she should be because I was being stupid and careless. Is there a way I can help her case so she won't be in too much trouble? Texas." Okay, I'm aware that this is a weird question, but please bear with me. I hope I'm making myself clear, but I'm typing this from a hospital bed, and I'm tired, so please excuse me if that's not the case. I own a motorbike. It is, rather was, my primary means of transportation and a hobby. In the last few years, a series of traumatic events in my life brought me to the conclusion that it was my time to end it all. I was into the habit of riding my bike on empty roads to relax, enjoying the speeds and the loneliness. That night, I decided to ride my bike as fast as I could and find a wall, a bridge pillar, or something to slam into, so that I would die doing what I liked best and my loved ones wouldn't know it was suicide. If that doesn't make sense, I'm sorry. I know how stupid that sounds. It's not an excuse, but I wasn't in the best mental state. Anyway, I was riding like 160 miles per hour on a straight and deserted stretch of road, when a truck got out of the side road and cut me off. I hadn't seen them and didn't have time to react. I slammed very hard into the side of the truck. Obviously, I didn't die. So much for my so well-devised plan, although I suffered serious injuries. Coma, countless broken bones, internal injuries, and so on. I lost consciousness and have no memory of what happened for a few days after the accident. This is what I was told happened. A woman was driving the truck. Her teenage daughter was in the passenger seat. Thankfully, they weren't injured in the accident. I was going very fast and downhill. It was dark, they couldn't see me, and thought it was safe to go. They stayed on the scene and were the ones to call 911. It's a place where I've been before. I definitely believe they couldn't see me. I've been told since the other driver failed to yield, she's at fault. Soon I'm going to be interviewed by the police to give my version of the events. I'm going to admit that I was speeding. I feel like crap because the woman who was driving the truck is going to have tons of problems because of the accident. In my plan, I hadn't thought that I would crash with someone else involved. I know, how stupid it is, I know. I had chosen a road where I was certain I would be alone at that time of the night. Now I've dragged an innocent family into my crap show of a life, and I want to make up for this as much as possible. I have many questions. 1. What can I tell the police so this lady suffers as few consequences as possible? I know it's my fault. They couldn't have seen me, and my speed made it impossible to brake in time. I don't think she should be at fault. Would me testifying that she couldn't possibly have seen me help her case? 2. What happens after I admit to speeding? I suppose my license will be suspended, but will there be other legal consequences? I wasn't drunk or on drugs if that matters. 3. I want to apologize to this family for the trouble they're facing. Can I do that? Thanks for your help. Ferryman says, most people here would say get a lawyer and transmit your information this way. Speaking with police could not only put liability on yourself, but also criminal repercussions. If you're insisting on doing this, just tell the truth. You were significantly speeding. With that information, the police will likely realize they were not at fault, or if they are still at fault, it will at least be determined with all the information. Do you know what criminal repercussions there could be? You could be charged with reckless driving for going that fast, which is a misdemeanor that could have you serving jail time. Okay, I get it. However, I did it for real. What are you suggesting I do? Maybe just say I don't know how fast I was going? I don't want to lie though. I'm not sure they can prove how fast I was going, but maybe they can. I suggest you get a lawyer. If you lie and they find out you lied, it will only get worse for you. I know, and I don't want to lie. I want to face my responsibilities and not make it worse for the lady who was driving the truck. Get a lawyer to navigate this. You can still do right by the lady and avoid jail, fines, or other punitive measures that you are opening yourself up to by not discussing this with counsel first. Yes, I think that's what I'm going to do. You would likely seriously benefit from speaking with a lawyer on this topic. They can help you make an informed decision that doesn't turn a set of mistakes into a bigger set of mistakes. Especially if you have suicidal tendencies. It is important not to make your situation worse for yourself. Please take time to speak with a lawyer, not to lie or get other people into trouble, but to navigate this in a way that does as little damage to everyone as possible. Update to post about motorbike accident. Thank you r/LegalAdvice for convincing me to not talk to the police without a lawyer. Quick update to my post from 3 months ago. Thank you very much for convincing me not to talk to the police without a lawyer. I was not doing well and not thinking clearly, and would absolutely have incriminated myself and likely ended up in jail. My lawyer was able to negotiate a great outcome. The lady who was driving the truck that cut me off will not be charged with anything, which is what I wanted, so it's great news. They recognized she couldn't have seen me. I've been able to write her a letter of apology. As for me, let's say I won't be driving anything for quite some time, but that was to be expected. It'll be a long time before I am physically able to do it anyway. I'm aware that the legal consequences could have been a lot worse, so I'm not complaining. The insurance companies are still doing their thing. I'm doing better now, staying at a rehab facility, and learning to walk again and everything. Thank you very much again. You people stopped me from making a life-changing mistake. Edit, thanks for the gold. That's very generous. I don't want to sound ungrateful, but I feel like I don't deserve it. Please, if you feel like sending money on me, you can make a donation on your local homeless shelter instead. They have it even harder than usual because of the pandemic. Edit 2. People have been asking, so I just wanted to say that I'm getting therapy to deal with depression and my suicidal ideas, and I'm doing better on that front too. Thanks for caring. Posted by user Hello Old Tenant, titled Philadelphia, PA. Just move into new house. Previous tenant used extra key to rob me. Is landlord responsible? I just moved into a new house this weekend in Philadelphia, PA. Yesterday, after finishing moving in, I went out to celebrate. While I was gone, the previous tenant let himself into my house and took about $500 worth of items. I have a nicer older neighbor who sits outside a lot, so I asked if she had seen anyone come into the house while I was out. She said the guy who used to live here came by shortly after I left, was friendly and said hello to her, and told her he was just picking a few things up that he had forgot. She assumed this was all cleared with me since he was so open and friendly, so she didn't think anything of it. My question is whether the landlord is responsible for not securing the house. Is it enough for him to just collect the keys that he gave from the previous tenant? There would be no way of knowing whether they made copies. Are landlords required to rekey or install new locks between each tenant? I do not feel comfortable knowing that at least one person, possibly more, has the key to my house and is willing to use it to rob me. I have already sent an email to the landlord requesting that he rekey the lock immediately. I'm also wondering if the landlord is retroactively responsible for the items that were stolen from me since he failed to secure the house. It was $200 cash and a laptop worth about $300. I don't have a TV yet, and I had my phone with me, so there wasn't anything else valuable for him to steal. I do have renter's insurance, but the deductible is $500, so I'm not going to file a claim. File a police report and sue the thief. If the landlord won't change your lock, change the lock yourself and send your landlord the bill. Filing a police report, even if you don't get satisfaction, suing the guy, he was a thief, right? Worthy enough of a police report, especially since there was a witness. After changing the lock, give the landlord a copy of the key. You can't lock the owner out of the property. Call the police and report him, then sue him to get the prosecutor to push for the guy to make you whole. You have a pretty solid case. That said, you can try to get the LL to change the lock. You can probably also sue for extra on top of that, like emotional sufferings or damages if you had anything important on that laptop, like your taxes, bill receipts, your thesis, whatever. Also, if you had any fragile information on there, like identity theft kind of stuff, you might want to freeze your credit. No, your claim is against the person who stole your items. You need to file a police report and either see if you can get damages through the criminal case or sue him for the cost of your items. Landlord has no duty to make a new set of keys and locks every time someone moves in or out. Careful how you answer. Some cities and states do require landlords to rekey locks between tenants, and landlords have been found liable for burglaries and assaults committed by former tenants with retained keys, even outside those areas. OP wouldn't be likely to win, but it's not nearly as black and white as you assert. I answered as such because Philadelphia landlord/tenant law only says that landlord has a duty to provide a functioning deadbolt for exterior doors and keys for interior locking doors. Nothing about a duty to change. Thank you. Do you happen to know where I can find that specific law? I've searched for landlord-tenant law at Philadelphia and haven't found anything specifically pertaining to this. I suppose the lack of any laws means they are not required to do it. I'm concerned now because I do not feel safe staying in the house without the locks being changed. If the landlord refuses to pay to rekey it, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I obviously can't stay in a house that a proven thief has a key to and has no issue using. Many locks can be easily and inexpensively rekeyed if you remove them yourself and take them to a locksmith. Usually just a couple screws to undo them from the inside. Maybe take a couple of pictures first and take them to a locksmith to make sure he can do it. Update. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, just moved into a new house. Previous tenant used extra key to rob me. Is landlord responsible? My landlord called me after reading my email. He was really shocked that the previous tenant did this. Said the guy didn't have any criminal background and wasn't shady or anything. Whether that's true or not, I don't really care, because my landlord is awesome and made everything right. He's coming over tonight to install a completely new doorknob and deadbolt set, and said he plans to have a locksmith rekey it between tenants from now on. He went to the old tenant's new apartment and confronted him. The guy claimed he thought it was his, and it was an honest mistake, and gave it back to my landlord. I call bullcrap, because the house was completely empty when I moved in. This dude knew he didn't leave anything behind, but whatever. The guy apparently also said he didn't take any cash, but my landlord told me to just take $200 off the rent next month because he feels partly responsible for not changing the locks and doesn't want me to feel crappy about my new place right off the bat. Now, I told all of this to a friend at work, who thinks the landlord was in on it and is just trying to fix it now so I don't report it. He thinks it's too good to be true, that the landlord could get the laptop back that quickly and then be so generous to just give me $200 of his own money. My friend is kind of paranoid, so I'm taking that with a grain of salt. Maybe he's right, but my gut says that this was just a crappy tenant and a good landlord taking a small financial hit in order to have a happy tenant. I'm really happy with how everything turned out. I will be setting up a little hunting camera pointing at my front door so that if the landlord does end up being shady, I'll catch it if he comes in or anything. But for now, I'm going to trust my gut and believe he's a good dude. Thanks everyone for all your advice. I learned a lot. My landlord made an unreasonable demands, then locked me out of my place because they're afraid I'm going to contaminate them with the coronavirus. This was in Michigan. Now, this is about a dispute with my landlords. I'm a grocery store worker. I'm considered essential and continue working during the pandemic. We were clearly told that we would be fired and not rehired if we didn't, so I don't have a choice. I need the money anyway, and I rent a room in the landlord's house. I always paid rent on time. Keep my place clean, there has never been an issue with me. The landlords are a man and his wife. They are in their 60s. They're very afraid of the coronavirus, to the point where they're acting irrationally. They say that they have a problem with me going to work and living in their house. The room I rent is on the side of the house and independent from it. I accessed it from the outside, and I don't have to enter their house. From the start of the pandemic, the landlords insisted several times that I should stop working. I had to tell them repeatedly that it wasn't possible. Then one day, they decided to seal my windows with tape so the contamination doesn't fly from my room to the outside. They also disabled the AC for that reason. I don't like that, but I didn't want to antagonize, so I didn't protest too much at the time. 3 days ago, I found a notice on my door from my landlords saying that they demand I take some measures to avoid contaminating them. They want me to strip in my car, behind the hedge to avoid bringing dirty clothes in, then sanitize myself completely before I enter my room, not just wash hands, disinfect my whole body with bleach if that's all I have, and sanitize everything I bring back from work with bleach. I was to accept the conditions by the next day or leave. I'm all for safety, but this is ridiculous. I'm aware of the risks, and I'm very careful not to touch anything before I shower when I come back from work, and of course, I wash and sanitize my hands all the time, and I wear a mask. I'd be willing to strip before I enter my room if needed, but not in the driveway where everybody can see me. They haven't told me how I'm supposed to wash myself outside, and I think I should be able to open the windows. My room isn't connected in any direct way to their house. There's no door between their place and mine. My windows are the only ones on this side of the house. I replied on the notice that I didn't accept the conditions, but I would do my best to act as safely as possible, and I can't leave now and put it on their door when I went to work. When I came back from work yesterday, they had changed the lock on my door. All my stuff is inside. They called me on my phone when they saw me in the driveway and said they would let me get my things back after the pandemic, but in the meantime, they don't want me on their property. I spent the night in my car because I had nowhere else to go. I think they don't have the right to do this, but with the pandemic situation, I'm not sure anymore. Also, I'd like to know if I can be trespassed for going back to get my stuff. Ideally, I'd like to go back to my own place, but I might be able to sleep in a friend's basement for some time if necessary. But I need my things back. Thank you. Locking you out is highly, highly illegal. What you need to do was call the police the second you weren't able to open your door. Go ahead and call the police now, and let the responding officer deal with your landlords. Do you know what the police is going to do? Will they force the door open? I'm not 100% sure about your state, but illegal evictions are misdemeanors in some states. The police will likely show up and explain in great detail to your landlords how badly they have screwed up. If the responding officer is halfway competent, I would assume they will ensure that you're able to get back into your apartment. Additionally, you can sue your landlord for the illegal eviction. At a minimum, you would get back any monetary damages you suffered as a result of the illegal eviction, and in many states, you can also get punitive damages. Make sure you get a police report and go ahead and contact a landlord-tenant attorney right away. They may take this case on contingency. If I can get back to my place, is there something I can do about the windows? Was it legal to tape them? I'm having a hard time picturing exactly what they did to the windows. Certainly they have to let you have airflow one way or the other, so you need to be able to open a window or have the HVAC system working. They put tape on the frames to seal the window to the frame. They cannot be opened. Not a lawyer, but sealing the window shut seems to be like it could be considered a violation of some sort of fire code. Might want to check on that. Good luck. That is an illegal eviction, despite whatever is going on in the world. You call the police should let you in. That's about it for the police involvement, unless you are locked out again. As a tenant, they are denying you access to your paid room and your personal belongings. They are also breaking any lease or contract they have had with you as a tenant. For the time being, and it might be difficult, you might want to look over any contracts you have with them, and see about finding a temporary place to stay. Fear is a strong thing to overcome, especially the older we get. They may be telling you the truth, and would let you get your stuff after the virus passes, but pandemics can last for years, even if the worst of it passes. And now onto post 2. Please help. Landlords locked me out of my rented room for not following up their unreasonable rules. Stripping on the driveway where everyone else can see me so I don't bring contaminated clothes home. Police won't come. Can I break the lock to enter my place? Follow up to my previous post. See it for more detail. Basically, my landlords locked me out of my place because they fear I'm going to contaminate them. I'm a grocery store worker, so I'm exposed to coronavirus. They want me to strip in my car so I don't bring back dirty clothes to the house. I refused because it's a 60 feet walk from the driveway to my door, and everyone can see me from the street. They are terrified, so they changed the lock on my door with all my possessions inside, and told me they'll trespass me if I enter their property before the end of the pandemic. As was suggested here, I told them I would call the police, because it's an illegal eviction. But they answered it's not because I'm not really evicted, it's just temporary until the end of the crisis. Then I called the police, and they said they won't come for this as it's a civil issue. I called twice and had the same answer. Landlords won't budge, so I had to spend a second night in my car. All my things are locked in my room, I have no access to a shower even though I'm exposed at work, and I really need to get a shower and put on clean clothes when I come back from work. I would consider sleeping somewhere else, but I need my stuff. If the police won't come, do I have the right to break the lock and open the door to my room, or is it breaking and entering? Can I be trespassed? I don't want to escalate the situation, but I don't know what else I can do. Edit, location is Michigan. You need to call back and demand an officer respond. Per Michigan EO 2020-54, your landlord is prohibited from removing or excluding you from your home unless you pose a substantial threat to another person or an immediate and severe risk to property. Furthermore, it states that a willful violation of the governor's orders is a criminal misdemeanor. If the police officer answering the phone refuses to dispatch an officer, ask to speak to the duty sergeant. You're being illegally prevented from accessing your place of residence. Okay, thanks. I'll try, but if they still don't come back, can I break into my place? Your best bet is going down to the station and asking for an escort. A bit harder to brush you off in person. With the caveat that this is guidance not based on your state's laws, but rather reflects my opinion, and should not be construed as any form of legal standing, I don't think that you could be charged with breaking and entering the property for where you are a legal resident, under a valid and presumably paid-to-date lease. Furthermore, should your landlord try to trespass you from your place of residence, they would, have to call the police, which would be of benefit to you. As a heads up, there's always a possibility that the landlords then try to withhold the cost of the broken lock from your security deposit upon your eventual departure. If there's a way to get past it without damaging the lock, you'll want to try that. But in the end, if your city's police department continues to be unwilling to assist, try your county sheriff office or state police. You need to continue forcing this matter until the situation is resolved. Bottom line, your landlord can't keep you from your property. Side note, I presume you're also looking for a new place to live? If not, I would do so ASAP. Update, Michigan's Attorney General has some really nice information covering landlord-tenant laws in their state. Specifically, Section 1.3 refers to MCL 600.2918, which states, you may bring suit against an owner who forcibly and unlawfully ejects you from the leased premises. You are entitled to recover possession of the premises and the greater of 3 times the amount of your actual damages, or $200. So instead of sleeping in your car, you could have probably just paid for a motel room, and that could be included in your actual damages. Per these 2 rules, unlawful interference with a possessory interest, including a variety of things, including using force or threatening to use force, removes, retails, or destroys your personal property, changing, altering, or adding locks and security devices without immediately giving you keys or other unlocking equipment, and boarding up or removing doors, or windows, or locks. You appear to also be entitled to damages for emotional stress, embarrassment, and humiliation you suffered as a result of the lockout. Use those statutes when talking to the police. Thanks a lot, I will say this. I don't understand why the police won't take care of it. Maybe they're overworked because of the situation? It's a civil matter is something that predates COVID, sadly. Best legal advice has been to go to the station. You should also fill out a report with the Michigan Attorney General's office, as it seems they are going after landlords for illegal evictions. Update to post about landlords locking me out for not following unreasonable rules. I called the police again. Said again I was being illegally evicted, and cited the law they were breaking. This time someone took me seriously. I had to wait a few hours, but a policewoman finally showed up at my landlord's house and made them give me the key to the new lock, so I was able to spend the night in my room. They were angry and scared, but there was nothing they could do. It's sad because they're not bad people, but fear will make some people go crazy, I guess. I'm looking for a new place to stay, hoping to find something quickly, and that the current landlords make no drama with my current security deposit and all. Thanks for your help. Our next post is by user CatBeans, titled, Washington State. Neighbor is currently video recording me and has a camera directly pointed at my bedroom window. What can I do? So I spoke with police here, and they said that he legally has the right to record anything he wants. However, I am sure I have some right to privacy. When the police visited my neighbor recording the camera, my neighbor did move the camera ever so slightly toward the street. Now, a month later, the camera is directly pointing into my bedroom window again. My home is 50 feet away from his. It is clear that this is where it is recording. He has also threatened me when I have asked personally to move the camera, and he replied with, "My house, my rules," as well as a mention of recording me calling him the N-word, I didn't, on said camera. I just want it pointed away from my bedroom window. I'm sure he can hear what goes on in the bedroom as well. What are my options? Am I allowed to put up a board on my property, blocking the camera view from my window? Honestly, that's about all I have left in the tank. Thanks. So, this guy has a camera that is 50 feet away, but capable of picking up audio in your own home, and it has night vision capabilities, and he's gonna report you to the FBI, and he's told you all of this? Look, it sounds to me like this guy is bat crap crazy, but I really doubt any of the things he told you are actually true. I mean, what exactly does he even plan to report to the FBI? He probably doesn't have any audio recording equipment or night vision powerful enough to be worth anything from 50 plus feet away, through a window no less. Pull your curtains shut when it's dark out, and otherwise ignore the lunatic unless he becomes legitimately threatening. There is a side issue that he has already been approached by the police about. He has an LRAD and outside audio system pointed at our home where he blasts random sounds at night and into the early morning. Our code enforcement officer looked into the problem and found out the guy who used to live in our home sold it due to the sounds during all hours of the night. He tells our other neighbors it's the railroad and the government flying drones over our homes. He told us it was our mortgage company at first, trying to make us move. He's dangerous in the sense that he is mentally incapable of making the right decisions. Is there any fallback on the previous owner for not disclosing an absolute bat-crap neighbor? I would think there is, but damn, that's shady. Also, it's totally okay to just own an LRAD? The code enforcement officer told us we should be looking into that, as in, either the realtor or the mortgage company screwed up by not disclosing a mentally unstable man lives next door. He has been visited by mental health agents from the police station before regarding this issue. And Brad Weasley says, put up curtains. edit, and yes, you can set something up on your property blocking his view. My windows in the bedroom have a tint on them, as well as blinds and curtains. It still isn't right to have a camera pointed at my window, as I'm positive he can hear us through all of that. It's not right morally and ethically, but it's not illegal to video record anything he wants from his house. If he is audio recording, it is conceivable, although I don't know really if it is not surreptitious. You could have some kind of action that he is eavesdropping on you. What makes you think that A, he is audio recording you, and B, his camera can hear you through your window? He told me he has video recording of my roommate coming in and out of the house. I don't see the relevance of having that, but he did say he would report me to the FBI. This guy is mentally unstable. Get your own camera and record his house/camera. Consider buying a shotgun in case he gets crazy enough to try a home invasion. The house is fortified with dogs and guns. This is probably Texas, isn't it? It sounds like Texas. Doesn't sound like Washington State. Update. Washington State. Neighbor is currently video recording me and has a camera directly pointed at my bedroom window. What can I do? So, a ton has happened since I last posted. I had mentioned in the comments that my neighbor had been basically using sound terrorism to harass us. I began writing in a log of each event that occurred, with the time, the date, the description. If I called the police, I did for almost every one, and it began to show an alarming pattern. He was playing sounds at random times of the night, every single night. After each major event of sounds, I would drop off a written statement to my local police station for the code enforcement officer. The city was now looking at charging him for noise violations based on my complaints. I took my 3-page log and copies of 7 signed statements, and finally had enough for the police taking their time to work on the case against my neighbor. I dropped $95 on paperwork to begin an anti-harassment order against my neighbor. I made sure to explicitly mention the camera pointed into my bedroom window and the ongoing noises. He was served the temporary order that very day by the local police, and sure enough, the noises ramped up. Before our court date to discuss the anti-harassment order, we were subpoenaed to be witnesses for the noise violation. We also brought the former owner of the home as well as the person who lived on the other side of my neighbor as witnesses to his noise-making capabilities. My neighbor never showed to the court date, and at that point had $1,250 pending in tickets. His lawyer showed up an hour late, and the judge graciously accepted his plea to move the date a month forward. Disappointment. Then the date for the anti-harassment order came. Once again, my neighbor didn't show, and his lawyer begged for more time to look over the case. The judge was just and said that everyone has a right to defend their First Amendment rights, so he moved the court date for a month later as well. Disappointment number 2. The noises are continuing on the regular at this point, and we are trying to record them as best as we can on our phones. It was really hard to do because the noises were short and happened at random in the middle of the night. The date for the second anti-harassment hearing arrived, and finally, we saw our neighbor come through the courtroom and sit in the back. When it was our turn to explain the situation, we made sure to present our call log, our statements, and videos that we had as evidence against our neighbor. Our neighbor's lawyer tried to get us to give up the call log because he mentioned he was not aware of it before our court date. The judge basically told the lawyer to go screw himself. The lawyer's only defense for my neighbor was that he worked long hours and couldn't possibly be awake in the middle of the night to terrorize us, and that conversely, we were the ones making the noises. We then brought up the fact that our neighbor had a security camera pointed directly at our home, and he should have plenty of evidence to prove we were indeed the noisemakers. The judge very confidently approved our anti-harassment order, stating no more noises, no more cameras in our windows, or at us in general, and our neighbor is not allowed within 25 feet of us. He immediately moved the camera pointing in our bedroom window to being completely flush with the side of the house. Awesome! This was great news. We finally achieved some peace, and then the date for the noise violation trial came, just as his lawyer showed up and made a big deal with the city lawyer that one ticket would be paid, in exchange for no appeal to our anti-harassment order and to throw out 2 tickets. It sucked, but they took the deal. Whatever. And all seemed well. Then about a month after the anti-harassment order kicked in, the noises began again, and the camera began to slowly point into our garage, back in the direction toward the bedroom window. This time, the police noticed something more alarming. A red light was going off in the tinted window directly behind the camera on the outside of my neighbor's house. They shone their flashlight and spotted a lens. My neighbor had a camera inside his window pointed at my bedroom window the entire time that the order was in place, and long before that. The officers told us to stay quiet, don't be alarmed, but they were now actively seeking a search warrant for the property to seize any noise-making equipment and take down the cameras, as he had broken the order. The next weekend, my neighbor was arrested and we got to sit outside on the front porch while they disassembled the cameras and seized speaker after speaker, megaphones, etc. from my neighbor's home. They said he had 4 foot of insulation surrounding the room with a camera, and the front door of the home was completely barred shut. Unfortunately, they just seized the equipment and will eventually give it back. My neighbor was out of jail the next day, and since they didn't have a search warrant for his hard drives, they couldn't place any voyeurism charges, despite my insistence. They even mentioned that they saw me and my husband on a laptop of his. I'm just happy that the noises have stopped, and as far as I know, no more hidden cameras. I'm just glad I could update this crazy situation for you guys. I'm sure I'm not out of the woods yet. TLDR, got an anti-harassment order and cameras were supposed to come down. Neighbor was a creep and had a hidden camera for a month while the order was in place. Probably longer. He got arrested and no more cameras. Oh, you thought that was the end? Update 2. It's close to a year now that we've dealt with the worst of my neighbor. Almost a year ago, we achieved the success of an anti-harassment order granted. That summer, he was arrested for harassing us, and he stopped with the cameras and the noises. But something was brewing behind those closed doors. Around early November 2017, we had a knock on the door one evening. It was an officer asking us if we had heard gunshots in the area. We had not. Soon into our conversation, he mentioned it was our neighbor who called and complained. They were aware of the situation and assured us that despite the situation, they have to respond to all gunshot calls. I was honestly not surprised that after all the quiet, something started up again. The next day, a police cruiser parked across the street from our home. I was expecting someone to knock again and ask about gunshots. No one came to the door, and the officer sat across the street, watching my home for over an hour. The next day, I emailed an officer I had been working with previously regarding the situation. The officer told me that my neighbor had been calling 911 every single day on my address for gunshots. By the time I got an email back, it had been a week. Every single day, this man was coming home from work, eating dinner, tending to daily life, and calling 911 on us for shooting guns. The officer said he would look into seeing if it counted as harassment through a third party. The new year came and went, and in early January, I emailed the officer back, and his response was simply that the city prosecutor wanted to set up a phone conference to discuss the plan going forward. The city prosecutor mentioned to me that at that point in time, my neighbor had still been calling 911 every day, even the morning of the conference call. She said they contacted all of my other neighbors to see if they heard any gunshots, and asked if they would testify that they have not heard anything coming from our property. They also planned to charge my neighbor with some counts of harassment and wrongfully utilizing emergency services. Part of his deal with the arrest over the summer involved him able to avoid jail time by having good behavior, and they are looking for their time back essentially. His arraignment date came, and his pre-trial was set. Came and went. It's being continued until next month. I am worried that he will try to continue this case until the end of time. Our anti-harassment order expires soon, and we will have to drag him to court once again to renew it, and spend more money. Things are starting to feel pretty dim again, and honestly, the recent continuance knocked the wind out of my sails. All I can do until I'm called as a witness and victim is wait. Update 3. Remember how I said that the city prosecutor was all on board to help me finish this? Well, things have changed. The second pre-trial after the case was continued is coming up. I contacted the prosecutor to ask why the case was continued. Apparently, the prosecutor went on an extended leave of absence and gave the case to another prosecutor. Okay, no big deal. I was given the contact of the new prosecutor and emailed them to check for an update. No response. 2 weeks have gone by, and 2 emails were sent with no response from the prosecutor. I even contacted the prosecutor's assistant, and no one has gotten back to me. Dead silence. To say that I am disappointed is an understatement. I don't know what to do, because the original prosecutor was so gung-ho about finishing this case, and now I can't get a hold of anyone. This is so uncommon, because when I had questions before, usually I would get a phone call with an answer, and at least an email response. My neighbor keeps adding trash cans to the fence line. These are large, heavy-duty cans with lids. I really don't know what it is about, but it's making me extremely uneasy. This whole situation is seriously giving me anxiety, and I just want it to be over. Radio silence from the only people who are trying to help me is making things so much worse. What should I do? Update 4. Final update. So it's all over. The prosecutor called me and said, of course, they aren't wanting to plead guilty to all the charges, and instead of jail time, his attorney wants 30 days of house arrest, which is what he does already, just sits in his house and never leaves. The trial was pushed to July, and we are moving out of state around that time. I told the prosecutor that we wouldn't be here to be witnesses. I have no soul left or fight in me. Thanks for all your help, everyone. The justice system has failed us. Oof. Oh my god, that's not a good ending. Lady wants me to pay her medical bill or she'll sue. To start off, my husband owns our home, if that matters. We've received a bit of snow lately, which needed to be shoveled. I shoveled the sidewalk in front of my house, my driveway, and the stairs leading to my door. I also laid down ice melt. I ordered a lot for Christmas, and I wanted to make sure the postal services had a clear, safe path to my door. So, I heard this lady screaming outside my house the other day. I went out to see what was going on, and found her in the middle of my yard on the ground, covered in snow. It was clear that she had walked across the yard, ignoring the path I shoveled, and fell. She starts claiming she slipped, and now her ankle and leg are busted. I tell her I'll call 911 for an ambulance, but she begs me not to because she can't afford it. So, I ask if she wants me to take her. She tells me no, she'll take herself. She tells me she's just going door to door looking for donations for families in need this season, and how it's ruined now. I really didn't feel bad and offered her my children's coats from last season and some canned goods. She declined, limped to her car, and left. She refused to let me help her at all. So I get a letter this morning from this lady. It's a handwritten letter that states, paraphrased because it was a very long letter, that I'm required to pay the medical bill for the slip she had on my property, that I was an irresponsible homeowner and didn't properly ensure visitors' safety by shoveling my yard. She concludes her ramblings by demanding $11,000 for the medical bill, or she will take me to court and demand $50,000 for the medical bill, emotional distress, and fees. I'm unsure how to handle this. It feels like extortion to me, but at the same time going to court is an expense that will really hurt my family right now if she isn't bluffing. My husband thinks we should just blow her off. I think that would be unwise. Edit, located in Utah. Do you have homeowners insurance? If you do, you should contact an adjuster and let them deal with her. There was an article a few years back about a group of people who were running a scam. They were falling on people's properties, claiming that they were soliciting donations. They claimed bogus injuries and were demanding payments. I would suggest a Google search of this person who's claiming that you owe them money now. Definitely don't ignore her, and definitely contact the professionals. Good luck. We do have insurance, and I'll do that Google search. I didn't even think of that. Thanks. As a residential adjuster, I disagree with the above advice. OP, my suggestion is to get out in front of this by contacting the legal team with your carrier's claims department. Preemptive measures in this regard are essential. Check your insurance policy. You may have a duty to report possible liability claims in a timely manner. Assuming you have liability coverage, most homeowners and renters policies do. If she does sue, your insurance company will defend you. If she does win, your insurance company will pay the judgment. Definitely a scam, made even more so by the handwritten letter demanding money. If this was legit, that letter would have come from an actual lawyer, typed on letterhead. Also, you don't mention where you are, edit they did. Many locales have permitting processes needed to solicit door-to-door. Also, what is the legality of someone you have not requested coming on not only your property, but walking across your lawn? Again, laws vary by location. I live in Utah. Gotcha. Before you get that stupid bot posting, you should update your original post. I would also look into the legality of door-to-door solicitation, not only in your state, but also your town/city. Many towns have ordinances against it. If your town and city does, and on the very off chance this person turns out to be legit, being able to tell them that the only way for them to get any money is to claim that they were actively breaking the law will be enough to shut them up. Me being the jerk that I am, would also consider getting a lawyer friend to draft a letter asking for money for damages done to the lawn when she walked and then fell on it. Thanks for the advice, I really enjoyed the last bit. You're quite welcome. Good luck. Oftentimes, the threat of some legal revenue is enough to scare these scammers away. They're just looking for an easy handout, which many will give just to avoid the possibility of a confrontation. That isn't me. And Not a Host says, she'll have a tough time arguing emotional distress and anything past the bills she's originally asking for. Keep that letter framed. It'll be great evidence to show the judge and likely limit yourself to the $11,000 she originally asked for, if it ever gets that far. She needs to have receipts for why she's asking for $11,000, which I'm going to guess she doesn't actually have, and pulled that number from way up her ass. Unfortunately, our world has come down to the point where I recommend every single person have a simple security camera set up at their house. One that does the job well can be found for $20 to $30. And naturally, there are better setups, but a single camera to catch that hit and run on a parked vehicle, theft, etc. pays for itself very fast. Also, an unfortunate lesson I've learned, by trying to be nice, some people will take that as a sign of weakness and attempt to milk it. Ignore until court documents are served. This is also a prime time to write a few pages of everything you can recall of the event. Take any photos you can and put it all together in the event that you need supporting evidence in the future. Don't make any statements to police, etc. without an attorney. Just have the evidence in case to provide your lawyer, who should handle everything. Update. Lady wants me to pay her medical bill or she'll sue. Quick update for anyone who's interested. I was silly to worry, obviously. It was definitely a scam. Thanks for all the advice. We got a knock on the door this morning. It was the lady, and she was sporting some crutches. Apparently, my shoveled path works now. She asked if we were going to pay her. I told her no, we would wait for an official letter from her lawyer and let the courts handle it. She tried to argue, saying it would be easier to just write her a check or Venmo it to her. Still told her no. So she asked for whatever was in my wallet to make her go away. I laughed, my husband laughed, we threatened to call the cops, and she decided to leave. My husband is going down to the police station right now to report this situation. We don't expect anything to come of it, but just in case she decides to do this again, they'll have a heads up. Posted by user, girl named B. Titled, Planet Fitness Lied. Question for you guys. So I moved out of state, but before I left, I went into Planet Fitness to cancel my gym membership. Signed the paper and everything. I noticed like 3 months later that they still had been debiting my bank account. So I called my bank, who said they had my account/routing number and they would block future debits and refund it. A month later, I noticed that they had billed me again for the 3 months plus a fee. So I called my bank again, who said this time they used my debit card and would refund the money and open a fraud dispute, since I cancelled it and did not permit these debits. Just today, I got a notice of legal action from my bank with deposits from Planet Fitness saying that I had never cancelled my membership, and said I went to the gym on March 6, 2020 at 12:30 p.m. and sent a picture of me walking in, dated March 6, 2020. Mind you, I've been out of state since November, and the picture showed me with very short hair, and I have had extensions since September 2019. They sent an old pic and are lying about me checking in. I have proof I was at work in a different state that day that they claim the picture was taken. I'm pretty positive it'll get figured out with the bank, But my question is, how could I let people know publicly about this fraudulent company without getting sued for slander or something? Also, could I sue them for blatantly lying? Thank you, legal advice. Edit, thanks for all the responses. I absolutely have proof of all kinds on my credit card. Being at work that day in another state, everything. I didn't get a paper from the girl who did it, who seemed annoyed in the first place. But being that they now blatantly lied and I have evidence of that, their case wouldn't stand either way. They even mailed it to my parents' house, which hasn't been my address for 7 months, and my mum was furious. I never thought to contact the Attorney General and make sure they don't get to keep doing this. Thanks all. Not a legal expert, but a former Planet Fitness employee. When you cancelled your membership, you should have gotten an email confirming the cancellation. If you did get the email, then you may use that as proof of cancellation. From seeing the billing system they use firsthand, I can certainly confirm that they are scummy with that, and it is very possible that person behind the desk did not finish, / did not properly cancel your membership. Edit, you may also ask for them to print out your check-in history, as they store that on file with times and dates. The craziest thing is that they're claiming I went in there on March 6th, and I was out of state at work that day, lol. So I'm not sure if they're forging some sort of record. Also, the girl at the counter was super rude, but I don't remember her name or really what she looked like besides a brunette. I did not get the email confirmation and didn't even think to look for it, which is why they wouldn't resolve anything with me when I called them and had to take it back to my bank. I know them lying automatically disproves any argument they may have, so I know I'll win. It's only $110, lol. But it's the principle of a company literally giving pictures of me from months ago and straight lying. I feel like people should be aware. Thanks for the info. I'm just an accountant. Make sure you elevate the dispute up the chain rather than dealing with the same person. There's a possibility that this could be an employee committing fraud on the company by collecting on old accounts and embezzling the difference. Not saying it's a sure thing, but getting more people involved can be a check against that. I would probably blast corporate too, just to be sure. Your debit card history could also be used to determine your location. If you swiped for gas, coffee, etc. in a different state on the same day the gym claims you were in California, take these idiots to the cleaner, OP. Contact your state attorney general about it. The last thing a business wants is the government coming after them. Bad PR is temporary. Government isn't. Thanks for that. I definitely hadn't thought of that. Yeah, the government coming after places causes all kinds of stuff, because they see that they lied about the one thing and suddenly inspectors are all over the place. Most Planet Fitnesses are franchises, so it's likely this is coming from a shady franchise owner and not the corporation themselves. I had zero issue cancelling my membership in the past. They always do this crap. In the future, make sure to send them an email as well so you can document it. It's a pretty normal thing for Planet Fitness. Keep up with your bank. It took a couple of times for us to get the charges stopped. I had something similar happen with one in Atlanta. If you regularly use your ATM card, the bank's fraud department should already have some evidence against what they're claiming, and not a lawyer. Would be the first ones to prosecute the fraud, I believe. When I finally got some sort of management at my location, they admitted the notes about closing the account were in there, but acted like it was my fault for not cancelling my membership via certified mail. Update. Planet Fitness lied. Just wanted to post an update for the fraud Planet Fitness committed. You can see the original post here. So after I received that letter with the very old photo of me with the doctored date and time and the fake check-in date and time of March 06, 2020, 12:30 p.m, I called my bank like all you directed me to do. I did really want to contact Planet Fitness directly and tell them they committed fraud and my hair hasn't looked like that for at least a year, and I haven't even been in that state since November. I decided not to, because I figured it might give them time to come up with an excuse or a rebuttal. The dispute analyst at my bank initially told me I was out of luck because the dispute was put in as fraud initially, which was technically incorrect because I signed a contract with them and gave them my bank info. He didn't realize that the photos and check-in times were fake and that they lied. So after I explained all of that with photo proof, he said it was then a fraudulent case. Also, since I made it very clear I wanted to cancel, that should have been enough to stop debiting my accounts moving forward. I sent over a letter from myself, a letter from my boyfriend who lives with me and can attest that I hadn't been to that state since November, a bank statement with charges in a different state that same day, and a letter from my boss with clock-in times showing I was at work that day and time. Needless to say, they will not be returning the money to Planet Fitness and closed the case. The bank analyst told me that they can move forward with repercussions since they are committing fraud against the bank technically, but I have already prepared a letter for the Attorney General. Hopefully, this post alone causes some people to be wary of the many fraudulent things this gym does. I have received so many messages and comments proving that this isn't an isolated event, and pretty common amongst other shady things. What should you give your money to? Thanks again for the help. Posted by user Truth Reptile, titled, "Neighbor left dog at home while on holiday. Help! My neighbor has gone on holiday 4 weeks and left his dog at home. I have broken his window and taken the dog in to feed him. Will I get in trouble? Location, Sunderland, England. There is a high likelihood that there will be repercussions from you breaking and entering your neighbor's home without going through the proper channels. Did you not think to call the police for assistance first? However good your intentions were, you have no idea if they did in fact abandon the animal without having someone pop in to make sure its necessities were met. If you live in an apartment complex situation, I recommend you do your best to get in touch with the landlord and inform him of what you did. Your neighbor has every right to report you to the police, and if you can get in touch with them via the landlord first, you might be able to have the window repaired and lessen the blow that someone broke into their home and essentially stole their dog. Also keep in mind that now smashed window is an entrance point for a potential, another actually, break-in. If that happens, you're in deep, because who is to say that wasn't you? Oh dear, now you say it like that, I am worried. This isn't something you should be taking lightly. What you did is most certainly illegal and has the potential to get you in a lot of trouble. Were you on speaking terms with your neighbor? How did you know he would be on holiday for 4 weeks? OP didn't reply to that. Are you positive there wasn't a pet sitter? If there is, yeah, you'll be in trouble for breaking his window and entering his home. If there's some sort of animal control in the UK, you might want to have contacted them before breaking into your neighbor's home. OP says, I didn't see anyone come to do anything for 2 weeks. I couldn't imagine a dog surviving 2 weeks without water. Was the dog malnourished and ill when you saw it? If not, someone was almost definitely coming in and caring for it, even if you didn't see them. The bathtub was full of dirty water. Good on you for wanting to help, but are you sure he didn't hire a pet sitter or make other arrangements? r/LegalAdvice UK is probably a better bet. Neighbor left dog at home while on holiday, Part 2. This is an update as promised around my breaking and entering. You can see the first section here. Thanks all for your advice and support. You made me feel better when I was alone. I contacted the RSPCA and explained what happened. I came clean. Honesty is the best policy. They confirmed that the owner and the address is on their system as being banned from owning animals. They told me I was wrong to take the law into my hands. Even they don't have the power to break and enter, they have to call the police in for the entry part. However, they have taken the dog into their care and advised they made contact with the owner. They pushed that had I not acted in the way I did, the owner would be in deeper water as the dog could have potentially starved and died. From now there hasn't been any action against me, but let's hope this guy doesn't keep any more pets when he is banned from doing so. Location, Sunderland, UK. Posted by user Rit Jui, titled, My circumcision went horribly wrong many years ago. Parents received settlement. Now I'm 18, they're refusing to give me the money. Washington. Alright, so as a result, I have part of my penis removed, including the entire tip. I know the hospital did settle with my parents. They always told me that the money is invested for my future. I'm 18 now, I want to use this for my education this year, but they haven't given me any details. They keep telling me that it is so soon and they will do it in due time. Is there any way for me to find out where this money is and access it? And was the money required to be put somewhere safe for me, or could it be that my parents spent it and are just buying time with me? Seattle, Washington. 90% of the time, when parents act shifty about something like this, the money has been gone for 10 years. I'd prepare yourself for that possibility. That's not to say your parents necessarily did anything illegal. Even in a custodial account, your parents are allowed to spend that money on things that benefit you. Education expenses, private lessons, new clothing for you, even prorated portions of their rent. They can't waste the money on fine wines and couples massages. But if they spent that money in ways that benefited you, it's not outright illegal. Your first hope at tracking it down is the IRS. If it's in an interest-bearing account in your name, then the financial provider will have to be producing 1099s in your name. Well, you just proved how crappy some of my family is. A relative of mine was beaten by another student so badly in high school that he lost 2 of his front teeth and almost lost 2 more. There was a settlement against the school for several $1,000s. The school ignored the fight and wouldn't call his parents afterwards. Instead of getting my relative necessary dental work, they spent the money to buy a truck. Sadly, I think I can top this. A friend of mine had a bitter custody dispute with ex-husband and his new wife, who was childless and desperately wanted to be a mum. They were nasty. Imagine all the bad things you've heard anecdotally about bad custody disputes. These people did it. The oldest of the 2 boys developed brain cancer at age 12. No way to treat it, no way to prevent it. Make-A-Wish contacted them and asked what the kid's big dream was. He wanted to go to Scottsdale, Arizona to watch the SF Giants in spring training. You can imagine what he'd get out of it all. All his heroes calling him a brave little guy, hugging him, letting him play around in the dugout. Nope. Mom said, well, that's something you'd enjoy, but don't be selfish. You should pick something that we would all do together as a family. They went for a week at the Atlantis Resort in the Bahamas. Maybe it's just a coincidence that the new mum had a frequent players account there. Probably just a coincidence. Sure, why wouldn't a kid dream of sitting around playing video games and drinking soda while the adults got hammered and gambled? He passed about a year later, age 13. His younger brother was 11. Despite having 50% custody, my friend hasn't seen her one surviving son since. He just turned 18, so maybe there's a chance. Friend has no money and no fight left in her. Just to be clear, the mum, in quotes, the one who refused, is the stepmother, or was it the bio-mother who refused? I understood it as the stepmother at least. My dad used my mother's social security death benefit that was in my name to buy meth. Similar situation. My mum got death benefits for me after my dad died. 14 years of $700 a month checks and never bothered to save anything for me. And in regards to the original post, Magic is Might says, I'm betting that money is gone. This sadly happens a lot. I'd outright ask them if they've spent it all. Their reaction should tell you everything. I see. I'll bring this up tonight and ask for a straight answer. This is so unfair of them, as I counted on this money for my future. If I knew it doesn't exist, I would have planned differently. Depending on the type of trust, them spending it to raise you might be a legitimate use of the money. So if they have spent it, it'd come down to the terms of any trust that was set up and what it was spent on. That would dictate whether they have acted appropriately. Consult a lawyer. It is very possible that you have 1 to 3 years from the date of your 18th birthday, or sooner if emancipated, to sue anyone involved, including, but not limited to, your own parents. Your parents may be attempting to run the clock down. I'm also guessing that they have already blown the money. Every state sets their own statute of limitations. How I know? I had a childhood injury. My parents informed me of the statute of limitations. I chose not to sue anyone as I had already had a settlement that my parents did keep for me. I would have had to forfeit the settlement to proceed with litigation. Update. My circumcision went horribly wrong many years ago. Parents received settlements. Now I'm 18 and they're refusing to give me the money. This is an update to my other post. I talked to my parents. Turns out they used the money to buy the house that we live in and start the business that my dad runs. My dad showed me that I have ownership of the business as well, relative to the amount that my money was invested in. He said he will start paying me from my profits, which I will use for education. They said since I'm an only child, all of this will come to me anyway. I'm happy about all of this. I had prepared myself to hear that the money is gone, but now I feel bad for ever doubting my parents like that. Illinois. Neighbor cut down a rare 150-year-old tree that has been in the family for generations. Recently, a great aunt of mine died, and we needed to spend a week in Washington state, and we asked a neighbor to take care of our 5 cats, 2 dogs, and 100 plus chickens. We came back this morning, and my parents had dropped me off at the school this morning straight from the airport before heading home. While my dad was inspecting the property, he noticed that our 150-year-old giant sequoia was gone. My great-great-grandfather had planted the tree after returning from California, and it's not native to northern Illinois, but with the right care, it can survive. You just have to be careful about the wind burn in winter. Now, the tree itself isn't that large because it's still young and the winter's here. Like this one that won't end because we're having a fudging snow in April, stunt its annual growth. Upon the first confrontation, the neighbor admitted that he had cut it down, but upon further questioning, will say nothing/denies doing it all, and my parents really have no idea what to do from here, and I want to be able to help them. Neighbor cut down my mature tree. Stories on this subreddit in the past mounted to 5 to 6 figure lawsuits being won against the person who cut down the tree or trees. As mentioned, gather any photos of the tree as well as get an arborist in. That tree is likely worth a lot of money. Not the OP, but if they have an honest-to-God sequoia in their backyard, it being 150 years old means it's just a baby, as that breed of tree lives for about 3,000 years. It's still probably worth a fortune, and assuming OP is near Chicago, then its replacement will be very expensive, as recent winters have been very, very cold and very dry, which is exactly the weather that will kill young sequoias. It will probably need a ton of care for a minimum of 10 years in order for it to stick. Keep in mind, this is not expert opinion, going from what I remember from an NPS tour, and some quick reading. The difficulty in this case will not be proving massive damages, but rather proving that the neighbor is the one who did it. Someone had to remove it, and that someone was most likely paid. Shouldn't be impossible to call around the local tree removal services and work backwards. OP, this is a good idea. Start by asking your other neighbors if they saw a truck for a tree removal company. If the tree is worth as much as everyone is suggesting, I'm guessing that's why your neighbor retracted his initial admission of guilt. I hope you get tree justice. What is that, like felony vandalism? Also, that type of tree is protected by federal law, right? Holy crap, I'd pee myself and leave the country. It's not so much the criminal offense the neighbor is likely worried about, it's the insane amount of money they're going to owe in damages. Trees are worth a lot of money. This neighbor could easily be on the hook for $100,000 plus. Non-native, old, enormous, and endangered. You're aiming quite low. Yeah, I'm thinking closer to 7 digits if he owns up to it. Lawyer consultation time. Now. And an arborist too. Trees can be flippin' expensive, and your neighbor may be on the hook for 4, 5, or maybe even 6 figures depending. We had another post not too long ago, and I want to say that a neighbor did $600,000 in damage, though that was for a handful of trees. Illinois, like most Midwestern states, has a statute that makes what your neighbor did illegal and requires them to pay treble damages. The fact they admitted doing it should be admissible evidence. It's an exception to the general rule, prohibiting hearsay evidence because telling you that they committed this illegal was an admission against your neighbor's own interests. And now, update to the Illinois sequoia being chopped down. So a little bit of an update, but first I want to channel a little bit of r/data is beautiful here. After the post was locked, I received a total of 47 PMs. One was for an quote-unquote an offer for legal services. The user claims to have been banned already, and I'll be sending a report about him to the mod mail short enough. 3 offered some more basic advice after the post was locked, and the remaining 43 were asking for updates. You know who you are. So I'm doing you a favor by not reporting that to the mod mail, because I too, when I lurk here, are curious for updates, and for me personally, at least no harm was done. On to the real update. I don't have the full picture, I was tangentially involved after my original post at best. My parents ended up getting a lawyer, obviously, and it ended up growing to a team of 3 lawyers. It started with them billing hourly, but the guy ended up doing something to end up peeing them off so much that they switched over to being paid on contingency, and we got lawyers' costs included in our settlement. And for those of you saying follow the lumber, you ended up being right. There is a house in Michigan that will be constructed using lumber gained from our tree. I never did find out about his motive for cutting our tree, and apparently it's bad enough to get the "I'll tell you when you're older" phrase from my dad. But generally, it was good news. One day my dad came in all excited, saying about how we own him, we own his kids, and we own his grandkids. It turns out we are going to be getting 3 50-year-old sequoias instead of one big 150-year-old sequoia, because they will be easier to transport. My parents say that we will also plant a new sapling sequoia when I go off to college. It's still bittersweet though. We still don't have our tree back, the neighbor is going to have to sell his farm to pay for it all, and when it's all said and done, those 3 trees may not even survive through their first winter here anyway, and we are out of a monetary settlement that could have paid for college for both me and any children I may end up having. Our next post is by user Itchy Gap, titled, California, involved in accident caused by prank, very loud train horn on another car. I'd like to fight the ticket I'm guessing I'm going to get, and likely future lawsuit. California, using a throwaway, this happened yesterday. Driving down a 3-lane road. I am in the middle lane. Light ahead of us about 1/4 of a mile up turns red. Everyone starts slowing down, but still moving around 30 miles per hour. Douchebag in a ridiculous lifted truck to the right of me as a prank honks his horn. Not any horn, but a fudging train horn. Scares the crap out of me. Here is what happened. Horn goes off, it caused me to swerve and slam into the back of the car in front of me in the next lane over. Another car was hit by the car I hit. We're all in agreement that we do not know if he hit the car first, or if I pushed him into the car, because he was equally scared and he slammed his brakes and left his lane when he heard the horn. Shockingly enough, the truck stuck around. MS Paint diagram of the situation. Alright, this has left me more confused. Cars are moving backwards in this situation. What is going on? No tickets were handed out to those of us in the accident, as the cops wanted to take their time concluding their investigation. But we were all told that tickets are coming. The guy in the truck did get a ticket for using his train horn, as that's illegal. My main question here, am I at fault here? What can I do to pin the cause of this on the guy in the truck with the super loud horn? Some quick googling says that his modification is illegal, as evidenced by the ticket that he received, but are his actions enough to make him at fault? Talk to your insurance company. It's very likely that they'll be paying for damage, and giving them a potential target to sue for subrogation is a good idea. They would pay for the damage and then sue the guy in the truck for the money they had to pay. Your insurance company has a better lawyer than you do, and this is part of what you pay them for. California is a pure comparative fault state. In short, that means that in a lawsuit, parties will litigate over what percentage of the fault for the accident each is responsible for, and then they will each need to pay their percentage of the damage. My guess is that this will fall somewhere in the realm of 50-50 between you and the train horn truck. But that is an uninformed guess. I'm a lawyer, but not in California, and I don't practice in this field of law. As for the traffic citation, I would relax. Even if the police do mail you a ticket, I can't imagine you not prevailing if you show up in court and explain the circumstances to the judge. I sit in courtrooms every day and watch judges toss out civil motor vehicle infractions with far worse facts than yours behind them. If you have a clean driving record, even better. Tell the judge that. If you don't have a clean driving record, stay mum about your history. The judge can't consider this propensity evidence unless you invite her to. You left one important consideration out of your question. Can your insurance company hike your rates up because of this? Unfortunately, I believe the answer to this is yes, even if you don't get a traffic citation, though see my earlier disclaimer. Not a lawyer, but have experience with trucks running train horns off compressors, and they are crazy loud. I have had numerous friends run these, and they were usually pretty good about using them around people. If someone used it to actually honk at someone, they are a douchebag, per your illustration. Per California CVC, but no horn shall emit an unreasonably loud or harsh sound. So it's subjective, but pretty sure that the local PD/CHP, not sure who responded exactly to the accident, will cite him for this. I know everyone is jumping on the "you are in control of your vehicle at all times," but my question would be, is it a reasonable assumption that this accident would not have taken place if the truck did not use his horn? Was there any indication that the accident would have still happened if he did not use his horn, or was the accident a direct cause from the horn and the cascading events that took place after? Again, not a lawyer, but really interested in the outcome of this. And now, update. California, douche with a train horn on his truck, I am not at fault. My car was towed pretty quickly after the accident, and once I gave my statement, my wife picked me up and took me to the auto shop that I asked the tow truck driver to drive the car to. So my insurance is going to sue the guy for the cost of the repair. My adjuster is not pleased with the situation. He met me at the auto shop a couple days after the accident, and he was just shaking his head all the while saying, "This is so frickin' stupid. A train horn. Really?" Right now, I am looking at $7,400 worth of damage on my 2017 S60 T6 Volvo. I love this car, and I'm so pissed off that it has been in an accident. Tiny Dick Truck Douche actually had his car towed and impounded because he disabled the factory horn. Therefore, according to the police, his car was lacking basic safety equipment required by California law and was not roadworthy. Petty, I know, but oh so satisfying. The main responding cop called me this AM to tell me all of this, and that I, along with the guy I hit, he did indeed hit car number 3, will not be ticketed. They concluded that involuntary jerk of the wheel due to hearing a train horn next to our cars was what caused the accident. We will likely be summoned to court to testify against this guy in some kind of criminal trial. The cop went on to tell me that he wrote him up for everything he possibly could. Cop gave me a brief rundown. I do not remember it all, but his exhaust was illegally modified. He did not have mud flaps, his tint was too dark. Sounds like they went through his car with a fine-toothed comb. They gave him a couple other tickets pertaining to being the cause of the accident. Basically, loud horn disturbed the peace, creating unsafe driving conditions, etc. So apparently this guy is known in the area. Calls have been made before about a dark-coloured lifted truck making a loud horn noise, and the cops know all about him. This seemed like it was their chance to finally nab him and his childish antics. Don't know what's going to happen to my insurance rate, but at least no points on my license. So I am sure it will be some time before I have a final update, but that's what's going on with me. Unfortunately that was posted a year ago, and that's our update, guys. Our next post is by user Dianosaurus Rex, titled, "Doctor sent me to get blood work at an in-network diagnostic center, and I've been sent a $1,700 bill with a note saying these charges were denied payment by insurance based on the diagnosis reported by the physician." Ooh, that was a mouthful. The title says it all, basically. This is in California. I went in for a checkup with a new doctor since I haven't been to a doctor in about 8 years. He ordered blood tests and then never called me for a follow-up. So I never went back, assuming the blood tests came back fine. Now I have this huge bill from the blood test center that's been denied by insurance. I only make $18,000 a year since I only work part-time while I'm in school, and I spend it all on bills. I have no savings and no way to pay for this. What should I do? Call the doctor's office and explain what happened. That you came in for an annual exam, the doctor ordered a routine annual blood work, and somehow something went wrong. because your insurance thinks the doctor diagnosed you with something and that you have no idea what's going on. Someone at the doctor's office should be able to explain what happened and correct it. That someone might be hard to find, and that someone might have to be persuaded to reach out to the lab that did the work if that's necessary. But there's no way you should be paying $1,700 for some routine blood work, so don't let this drop. I'd show up in person, documentation in tow. Edit, why does everyone seem to think I would be yelling at someone? You're just clearing up a billing issue, it doesn't have to get nasty. I'm just saying it helps because it forces them to address the issue right then and there. The person who is able to rectify the situation may not be the person at the desk. They may not even be in the office at all. I have dealt with offices that had a third-party coders that did the insurance billing. The other nice thing about sending an email is that you have a record of the conversation if you need to escalate the situation later. That would be unnecessarily confrontational. Use the phone or send an email. You can always get more insistent later. And our good friend Deleted says, tell your doctor what happened and ask him to change the diagnostic code and resubmit. I worked in a doctor's office and we have done this before. Usually they'll need to write a letter clarifying why the tests were necessary. Heathen91 says, 1. Call your insurance company to figure out exactly what is wrong with the diagnosis code that was submitted. 2. Call the doctor's office and explain, and ask for them to send a corrected claim to the lab for a new diagnosis code. The lab will then send a corrected claim to your insurance. I work in health insurance, and I've seen lab claims denied for the same reason countless times. Sometimes the doctor will send the diagnosis code for unspecified other conditions, which is not specific enough for health insurance to pay. It really shouldn't be a big deal for the doctor's office to fix. P.S. Don't call them guns a-blazin'. The old saying, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar, is super relevant here. Best of luck. My least favorite part of my job is picking up a phone and immediately getting screamed at because a patient got themselves all worked up over something I would be more than happy to fix for them. And now, update. Charged $1,700 for lab work that insurance denied as medically unnecessary. Fixed. Edit, this is in California. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you to everyone who commented and gave advice. I really appreciate all the help. Here is what I ended up doing. I called my own insurance company to find out why it was denied. I found out that, because of my dad's specific insurance plan, I was supposed to go to a specific doctor's office and lab for my yearly checkup and blood work that is near my parents' house because the insurance has a specific contract with them. I didn't go there because I live a few hundred miles away. However, my address is listed as my parents' address, so the insurance company thought I lived nearby. They said I could appeal with an address change, but the woman on the phone was very upfront and said that those never get approved. She said that if I could get my doctor to change the billing code, just like all of you said, you noble, wonderful people, then the insurance company could review it. She also said that the old code had to be removed and a new one put in place. The new billing couldn't have both codes on it. So, I went to my doctor's office and brought in my bill. The admin at the front was so sympathetic and understanding and promised to take care of it within the next few days. I told her everything that the insurance lady told me, and she wrote it all down and clipped a copy of it to my bill. She said that the diagnostics place never even sent them my results. By that Friday, she had gotten my results and had me come in to find what they were, resubmitted the claim to insurance, and put a hold on all payments until it was figured out. Today, I got my new bill in the mail. All the blood work was covered, my new bill is $0. I cried all over the place, you guys. I'm planning on bringing that admin a thank you card and maybe a Starbucks card and flowers. Hopefully she's allowed to take them. Thank you all so much for your advice and help. You are all the best. You literally helped me from having to pay 10% of my yearly wages. Plus, I started saving up in preparation for having to pay this bill, so now I have the beginnings of a little nest egg/emergency fund, just in case something happens in the future. Again, you guys rock. Alright, and our last post today is by user Ferristastic. titled, "My 18 female, anti-vax mum, 34 female, refuses to give me my documents that I need to get vaccinated and encourages my family to harass me." Hello Reddit. I don't quite know if this is the right place to post this, but I appreciate any help I can get. Sorry about my English. I recently turned 18, and until now, my mother still had all my documents like my birth certificate, my bank account stuff, and of course my vaccination certificate. I never had any problem with that because I knew she kept it safe and didn't misuse it to hurt me or something. At least until now. A bit of backstory. I was vaccinated as a baby, but sometime in between then and now, my mother got it into her head that vaccines are harmful. My mum's pretty naive. The kind of person that reads something on Facebook and assumes it must be true and doesn't actually look up sources or even Google anything, ever. Because of that, she thinks vaccines cause mental illness, don't help, and are all just a big gimmick by the pharma industry. You get what I mean. Obviously, I learned about vaccines in biology, and I informed myself about them, so I know that's all BS. When I was 14 and knew it was about time my vaccinations get refreshed, I asked my mum to go to the doctor with me to get them. But my mum refused to allow me. "You can do what you want when you're 18, she said. Thing is, I turned 18 recently, and the first thing I looked into was finally getting my vaccinations. I got infected with whooping cough last year, and it was the worst 7 weeks of my life, and I had injuries along my ribs because of it that took entire months to heal. It could have been prevented if I had just been vaccinated, and I want to take those precautions concerning my health now. So I made an appointment with my doctor for the 25th of this month. I assumed it wouldn't be a problem, because I'm 18 now and there's nothing my mum can do to stop me. Or so I thought. She is vehemently refusing to hand over my vaccination certification, which my doctor said I should bring with me. We've had a lot of fights about it, and no matter what I say or how many facts about vaccines I tell her, she isn't listening to anything, because I have no life experience and she knows a doctor from her anti-vax Facebook group who says vaccines cause autism. She vaguely posted about me in her anti-vax Facebook group, talking about her poor child with no life experience who's blinded by the pharma industry. She's also talked about me with people in our family that have the same views as her. Since then, random Facebook people I don't know and members of my own family have been constantly sending me messages and even calling me, trying to talk me out of getting vaccinated and telling me I'm stupid. I feel like I can't go to family gatherings anymore because I will be harassed and put on the spot, and my mother would encourage it. I just want to get vaccinated in peace, but she won't give me my vaccination certificate and the 25th is getting closer. So I want to ask, is what she is doing illegal? And in the likely case she won't give me my documents in the next few days, can I still get my vaccinations without it? I don't actually intend to press any charges against my mother. I would have nowhere to go and no money without her. But maybe I can pressure her into giving me the documents if I tell her she's committing a crime. Edit 1, I'm from Germany. You don't need the certificate to get vaccinated. Given how long it's been, you probably need boosters for all of them anyway. This right here. The doctor will have asked that you bring the certificate to make it easier for him to find out what vaccinations you do or do not have, but it's not a medical necessity. As others have mentioned, there are blood tests that can determine your antibody levels, and a lot can be learned about talking to you about your medical history, i.e., do you remember receiving shots around kindergarten or 4th grade? Plenty of people lose their records over the years. Even if your doctor isn't able to pull your records digitally, I'm not sure how medical records work in Germany, he or she will be far more interested in ensuring you're protected by the appropriate vaccines than whether you can produce the right paperwork. I'm really sorry your mother is giving you such a hard time about this. It seems like you have otherwise fine relationship with her. It sucks that something so asinine is causing an issue for you both. I couldn't get my records for a while, and I ended up just getting everything all over again, as it was cheaper for me with my insurance to do that, versus run my titers except for my chickenpox. Germany, of course, is different, but vaccines are very safe, and it would likely be okay to start from scratch. As a fellow German, you're 18 now and can do whatever you want. Just go to your doctor's appointment and explain the situation. They need to keep records for 10 years, but I assume that you haven't been vaccinated within a decade. So that is moot and you need a booster at least anyway. In your situation, the doctor will most likely just give you everything again, as, at least according to German Health Office, just to say I am not giving a healthcare advice, there is no danger in it. Here is an article on what happens if you lose your vaccination pass. I assume your mum told you that you can't get vaccinated without those papers, which is simply not true. Talk to your doctors and you'll be fine. Legally, there is very little to do. German courts usually side with free speech, and I would personally just take a step back from the family. And in the post, OP has 2 more edits. Edit 2, thank you everyone for the replies and the support. I appreciate all the help. And edit 3, I'm blown away by all the support you have shown me, Reddit. Thank you so much, guys. To everyone worried about my bank account, I have already made a new one. Before turning 18, I had an account for minors that my mother had access to. She has never abused this or taken money from me. When I was 18, I made a few new ones which only I have access to, so no worries. Thank you for reading. I hope some of you can help me out. That was posted a year ago, and there were no updates posted further than that, but I think it's easy to say here that she's 18, she can make her own decisions, she definitely went to the doctor and had these shots made, so it seems like a happy ending to me. Reddit gave some good advice, and this is legal advice after all, so hey, I'm happy with it, and I hope you're happy with it. This has been Markee today, guys. I hope you have a good day, night sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next episode. Have a good one. Bye.